is Tomlin from TomlinHarmonicaLessons.com, and today's video is Seydel versus Suzuki versus Hohner Celebrity Deathmatch. So I'm going to talk about all three of these brands and tell you what I think about them. But I'm going to give you a spoiler alert right now. I play all three, and I'm not sponsored by any of them. So I'm just going to talk to you about the pros and cons of the general style of each of them. So with me today I have a Hohner Marine Band Deluxe. It's got an Andrew Zajac comb in it, but apart from that it's all standard. I've got a Suzuki Manji, which has a Blue Moon harmonica comb in it. Apart from that, all standard. And I have a Seydel 1847, classic, all standard. So the combs in the Manji and the Hohner, I just find them a little bit more comfortable. They don't make an absolutely insane amount of difference. They maybe make it a tiny bit more airtight, but that's not really going to make a huge difference day to day and practically. So I guess the thing to do would be to start with what I'm going to call the softest of the harmonicas, which is the Hohner. So generally I find that the most important difference between these harmonicas is the reed material. So the Hohner Marine Band has brass reeds, and most of the Hohner harmonicas have the same brass reeds, the Special 20, the Gold Melody, etc., with kind of slight variations, but the basic premise is the same. They feel soft. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean that you don't need a lot of breath force in order to get the note to sound. You also don't need a lot of bending power to bend, and that's very fun. It means you can kind of really comfortably all of that stuff is super easy to throw in. The big, long, slurred bends, the overblows generally are easier. Doesn't mean that you can't do overblows on the other harmonicas, but just generally, this is a very responsive kind of harmonica. Now that sounds great, but there are a couple of downsides with that. The first one is that you need to be quite careful when you're bending to make sure that you bend in tune. Because it's not fighting you, it can slur away from the bend. The other thing that you need to be careful about is if you are a particularly aggressive player and you use a very heavy breath force, then you'll probably find that the Hohners don't last very long for you, especially on the notes that you really hammer. So quite often that's the 4 draw. So I see a lot of students who come in and they've blown the reed out on their 4 draws. That literally means that the reed has fatigued to the point of either not working anymore or actually just completely breaking out of the harmonica. And that's due to the material that the reeds are made from. Okay, so if that is an issue for you, then I would suggest looking at the Seydel 1847 and Seydels in general, because they use stainless steel reeds, which are a lot stiffer and a lot more durable, which is great if you're a heavy player. But it also means that you need to be a little bit more aggressive with them. So that kind of soft, gentle playing, the kind of smooth bending and all that kind of thing, it isn't quite so achievable on the Seydel, at least in my opinion. You can still do it. But you need to push a little bit harder. So it's going to fight you, but I find that really pleasing. I find that the harmonica giving a little bit back to me rather than just taking everything I give it is actually quite fun. It's quite nice to have that as an option. So Seydel, brilliant for that. In between the two harmonicas, in between the Hohner and the Seydel, you get the Suzukis and primarily the Manjis and the Olives. So those are the ones that I have the most experience with. And they're very well made harmonicas. They have a stiffness of reed that's kind of between the Seydel and the Hohner. So it's as far as I remember, it's a phosphor bronze reed alloy that they have, and it's not as stiff as the stainless steel one. It's not as supple and pliable as the brass one. So they have really good longevity, but they are quite precise in terms of the playing. I find that a lot of beginner students really struggle to make the Suzukis sound good. They have a tendency to choke. So you end up, if you're pulling too hard and you're using too much pressure, you get those notes just disappearing. So you need to be quite precise in your playing. So if you have a very precise embouchure and you use a very kind of level, medium level of breath force, and your tongue is exactly where it should be, then you'll find that they're very nice harmonicas, very easy to play. They don't need a lot of air, but they're very fastidious. I think they sound great. I think they generally make people better players because they make them really refine their technique, but they are quite difficult to start with. Okay, but they still sound good. They last a really long time, and I think they're great value for money. I think all of these harmonicas are great value for money. They're not the cheapest, but they're not customs, and they play really well. So to kind of recap, if you're a gentle player and you want the easiest harmonica to play, then something like a Marine Band Deluxe or a crossover is a great place to start. The Suzuki is quite finicky and fastidious, and basically if your technique isn't up to scratch, you're going to really struggle with it. The Seydels are kind of really great for heavy players. They last a really long time. They have a nice loud full tone. They're a really solid harmonica. So I guess the question is, why do I play all three? Well, I'm not massively fussy about what I play to start with, but I do find that depending on what I'm doing, I will reach for one thing or the other. So if I'm playing a gig and I'm playing amplified, and I find that I tend to play harder, I tend to be more aggressive. And for that, something like the Seydel is brilliant, because I know that it's not going to choke on me, it's going to be nice and dependable. Plus, because it has the closed vents on the side, I can really get a super thick amplified tone. If I'm playing acoustically and I want a really classic traditional blues sound, then the Marine Band is really hard to beat. And then finally, if I'm playing kind of more modern with overblows and kind of more melody based, then I'll probably pick up the Suzuki. So they all have their pros and cons. What I'll do, just to kind of finish up, I'm going to try and play pretty much the same thing on all three harmonicas so you can hear the difference, if there is much of one. So I'll start with the Marine Band. So. Okay, Hohner. Now let's try the Suzuki. And finally, the Seydel 1847. So, slight variations between all three in terms of what I was playing, but it's pretty much the same idea. One thing I forgot to mention about the Seydel, the holes are slightly bigger, which some people find makes it harder to really single out a clean note. So that's something to bear in mind. But I think that kind of like great drivers who are comfortable jumping between vehicles, great harmonica players should also be comfortable jumping between harmonicas. You don't want to be in a situation, at least I personally don't want to be in a situation where if I'm gigging in a different town from where I live and either all my harmonicas disappear or randomly they all break, I can't just go into a music shop and buy whatever they have available and I can play. That's something I think that's quite important. All right, I'd love to hear what your favorite harmonica brand out of those three is. Maybe write it as a comment below, that'd be really interesting. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up by hitting the like button below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel because I put out a new video every Wednesday, and hit that little bell icon so that you get notified when I upload a new video. And finally, if you are wanting to get a little bit more help and guidance with your harmonica playing, then I suggest you head over to TomlinHarmonicaschool.com. That's where I have my premium online harmonica school where I provide students with step-by-step curriculum from beginner to advanced intermediate. I also provide feedback on student submissions, and I answer all of their questions in a weekly live Q&A session. So check that out if you want to take things up a notch. All right, take it easy. Happy harping.